contrast stories with similar characters.
Awesome. So today we are going to take some of those stories we've been reading for the last 2 weeks, and we are going to compare and contrast different characters in the stories. To be successful today, you're going to have to do a few things. You are going to need to determine how Rabbit is the same and different to some of our other characters that we read about. And, as always, you're going to have to use some text evidence to support your thinking, okay? So, just like we typically do, I am going to model for you how I would answer a question, comparing and contrasting some different characters, and then I'm going to give you a chance to practice. Today you're going to practice in some small groups of 2 or 3. So, just as a reminder, the stories that we've been focusing on are Rabbit and Coyote, Cinderella's Very Bad Day, and Cinderella, Too Much for Words. And when I say compare and contrast, that means that we're looking for things that are similar and things that are different. Okay? You with me?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So, this is the question I am going to model for you. When Miss Todd was modeling, point to the person who's doing the work. This person right here, right? Do I need your help?
No.
No, not right now. I'm going to do the work, and all I want you to do is I want you to watch what I do, and I want you to pay attention to what I say with your ears so that you know what I'm thinking to solve the problem, okay? Or to answer the question. So, my question that I have to answer today is a big question. It says, compare Rabbit's attitude and actions to those of the characters in the Cinderella stories. Which of these characters does Rabbit most closely resemble? Cite specific text evidence from Rabbit and Coyote and Cinderella's Bad Day or Cinderella Too Much for Words to support your comparison. When I see this, my brain goes, wow, that's a big question with a lot of words. So the first thing I think that I should do is probably break down this question so that I know exactly what I have to answer. And I want to kind of make myself aware of how many parts to the question do I need to answer, right? So what I'm going to do is just read it again one more time really slowly and try to figure out what are the important parts I need to get at. So it says, compare Rabbit's attitude and actions to those of the characters in the Cinderella stories. That tells me that I'm paying attention to Rabbit and some other character in a Cinderella story. The big question, I notice there's a question mark here. So it's asking me to answer which of these characters does Rabbit most closely resemble. And I know the word resemble, that kind of means like which character is Rabbit most like? To resemble something means to be like it. Thanks for nodding along. I can see that you're paying attention. So, resemble means like which character is he most like? So I'm going to have to think, which character does he remind me of? And as always, I have to cite specific evidence, and it tells me where I need to get it from. So I can cite evidence from Rabbit and Coyote. I have to cite evidence from there. Plus, either Cinderella's Very Bad Day or Cinderella Too Much for Words. Okay, that's a lot I have to do today, but I think I can do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my TCR and get my wrap organizer ready. And I'm thinking right now, I already think I kind of have an idea because we've read these stories so many times. And I know that Rabbit, when I think about Rabbit, from Rabbit and Coyote, I think of him as like a pretty selfish character. He really only cared about Rabbit, right? He was selfish because he didn't want to get in trouble with the farmer after he stole all the carrots. And since he didn't want to get in trouble, he just kept tricking Coyote to get himself out of trouble. And he didn't really care about Coyote's feelings at all, did he? Oh, wait, that's my question for my brain. So I think he's pretty selfish. Now I'm going to think, okay, when we read Cinderella's Very Bad Day and Cinderella Too Much for Words, you know what really stands out to me is I remember stepsister number 1 being incredibly selfish as well. She only cared about herself. She did not care about Cinderella's feelings. She did not care if she hurt Cinderella. And in fact, she was like so mean as to call Cinderella lazy, mean, awful, horrible, lazy. And she made Cinderella do all the things for her, even though she could have done them herself. So to me, if I'm answering this first part, which character does Rabbit most closely resemble? I'm thinking that he is a lot like stepsister number 1, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and put that on my graphic organizer, and I think what I can do first is my restate and my answer, and I'll come back to get my proof after I've stated my answer, which I found is that Rabbit is like stepsister number 1 because they're both selfish. To restate the question, I'm going to look back at the question and use words from the question to help me. I think this part right here is really going to help me. Rabbit most closely resembles, I can just use that little chunk right there for my restate. Rabbit most closely resembles. Oh wait, that's my restate. Sorry, this part down here is going to be for my answer. Rabbit most closely resembles, and my answer is stepsister number 1. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad you agreed. Now, it says in the question, I have to have evidence from both of the texts that I'm looking in. So I have to have evidence from Rabbit and Coyote, and I didn't use this text, so I have to have evidence from Cinderella, Too Much for Words. So down here in my organizer, I'm just going to jot myself some notes because I'm going to turn this into a paragraph after I've got all my thinking organized. I know that Cinderella's stepsister, she was very selfish, and she didn't care at all about Cinderella or her feelings. In fact, she called her lazy, mean, awful, horrible, lazy. She called her names. So I'm going to jot that down, and I'm going to write that in scene 1, she called her names. And, oh, sorry, my fault. And she made Cinderella do all the work. Even work she could have done herself. Okay? So now I've got my thoughts all organized. Now to spare you guys having to sit here for how long it would take me to write these thoughts into a beautiful paragraph of a response, I went ahead and just did it ahead of time so that I could read it to you. So you got a chance to see me organize all my thinking, right? We broke down the question, I organized my thinking with my answer, my proof, my evidence from the text, and then I took all of this and I turned it into a beautiful paragraph that completely answers the question. So this is what it sounds like.
This is what.
Rabbit most closely resembles stepsister number 1 from Cinderella, Too Much for Words. They are both selfish and they don't care about anyone else's feelings. In Rabbit and Coyote, Rabbit tricks Coyote multiple times so that he won't get in trouble with the farmer. Right here I made sure to write down where that evidence came from since the question told me I had to. I made sure to include the title. He doesn't care that he is hurting Coyote. Stepsister number 1 calls Cinderella lazy, mean, awful, horrible, lazy. She doesn't care that Cinderella is already overworked. She makes Cinderella do everything for her anyway. This is why I believe Rabbit is most like stepsister number 1. You. What did you see me do when I got my question? What did I do first? What did I do second? What did you hear me say? Carter, what did you see me do?
What I saw you do is I saw you organized it, and then all you did was just put it on the other paper so you know it's easier. And you looked at the question and you knew that you had to put the title on.
Wow, you saw me do a lot of things. Okay, what else? What did you see me do? Ayla, let's start with what did you see me do first? Carter kind of listed off a whole bunch of things, which I like that. He saw a lot of things. What did you see or hear me do first?
I saw you write it down on organizer so that you don't mess up.
Okay, so you did see me organize my thinking on my organizer, right? To help me get all of my thoughts in order. But I did something before that. Taylor, what did you see me do before that?
I saw you restate the question.
But even before that, Genesis, like I didn't, how did I know what question to restate? What did I do before that?
I think you like went to Cinderella for too much words, and you looked through and you saw that stepsister number 1 called her all these mean words, and you wrote it down on the organizer.
So you saw me look at my TCR for my evidence, but there's something I did first. Diana, what did I do first?
You underlined important things so that you could organize it.
And underlined important things where?
Your question.
Oh, did you guys see me break down the question first so that I was very clear on what I was even answering? Yes, and then you saw me go into my TCR and get my thoughts brewing. And then you heard me and saw me go through my thoughts and organize them by restating the question that I figured out I was answering, by answering it, by finding my proof. And then you heard my final response, right? Okay. So with your partners today that I'm going to tell you about in just a second, this is what I want you to do. You're going to read your question. You're going to break it down so you understand the parts that need to be answered. With your group, you're going to organize your thinking on your wrap organizer. And then with your group, you're going to write a response on a sheet of notebook paper. Andre, each group is just responsible for one of these. So you can take turns scribing, or you can have one leader of the group be the person who's writing, but everybody's contributing today. Okay, everyone is going to contribute their thinking, but you're responsible for one paper. These are going to be your small groups. So my first lap around the room, so as I'm walking around, finding each group and seeing where you are, I'm going to be checking to see if your group has been able to break down the question and figure out what you're answering. Okay? All right. Passion, Kinsley, Emma, you are dismissed. Zaira, Valeria.
Simulator or difference from hers. Specific evidence from both Rabbit and Coyote and Cinderella's very bad day to support your thinking. Okay, so now we have to break it up. So, what do you think is the most important words in this? I don't have my answer. So, what's the most important words about this? How would response from the simulator? How do you think Rabbit would respond from trees? Oh, thank you. Okay. How would let's break it up. What do you think is like the most important words in this sentence? Would breaking up
How do you think Rabbit would respond to the treatment?
How do you think Rabbit would respond to the treatment that Cinderella retrieves from her stepsisters? How would his response be similar or different to hers? Cite specific evidence from both Rabbit and Coyote and Cinderella's very bad day to support your thinking. First write your name on the paper.
I broke it into parts, yeah. So what is this question asking you to do? Like what's the most important part of the question when you look at it again more closely? What is it asking you to compare?
Oh, compare the stepsisters with the Rabbit.
Let's read it again.
How do you think Rabbit would respond to treatment that
How you think he would respond, right? It says, do you think it would be similar to Cinderella's response or different than Cinderella? You think it would be different, okay? So you're gonna have to find some evidence that proves that. So I'm gonna go walk around and let you guys talk about that, and then I'll come back in a second. But yes, you are answering, if Rabbit was treated like Cinderella by the stepsisters, would he act the same as she did or differently than she did? Okay.
I think he would act different. Because you know how he's like a trickster, maybe. He tricks Coyote and stuff. So I think he will trick the stepsisters instead when they act like that. I think
Yeah, you got it now. So what do you think? Would Rabbit respond the same as Cinderella or differently? Differently? What's your evidence?
He would majorly trick the stepsisters because Rabbit just tricks Coyote for no reason, but this time it is for a reason.
And why would that be different than what Cinderella did? What did Cinderella do? She was just nice, right?
So Rabbit would choose.
Okay, good. That sounds better. So if you think that you are ready and you have all of your evidence, you can see if you can put it together into a paragraph. Okay? Looks good. Hearing you say Cinderella was so nice that she just took it and she just did what they asked even though they were rude and mean. But Rabbit would not do that.
yeah, he wouldn't be cool with it.
He wouldn't be cool with it. So what would his response?
We're better right now.
Yeah, what do you think it would be?
His probably response would be,
If he's not going to be nice and just do it like Cinderella,
I'm not gonna do it.
so he would just tell him, no, I'm not going to do it.
We're on top of the part.
Would he do anything else? Do you think he might play some tricks on them?
Because he's the trickster himself.
You could probably use that in the text somewhere. It said, where did it say that? What you just said?
He was the pesky little thief.
Like the part you just said was over here.
The biggest trickster.
The biggest trickster in town. So that could be some evidence right there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he would have.
So remember, your target today was to compare and contrast stories with similar characters. I think what confused you guys in the beginning is you got really, really stuck on my question, and it was hard for you to change your thinking to a new question. And with some prompting though and some revisiting, we were finally able to get there. So I want to read you a couple of responses that I found from a few different groups that were pretty good and either met the target and answered the question completely or were very close. So this is what Trayton and Luke wrote. They said, Rabbit would respond to the stepsisters differently than Cinderella. So here I see the restate. Rabbit would respond to the stepsisters, and here's their answer, differently than Cinderella. Then all of this stuff down here is their proof, it's their evidence. I think this because Rabbit is the biggest trickster in town. There's evidence from the text. It said that right in paragraph 7 of the text. Rabbit and Coyote. I also think this because when the stepsisters threw berries at her, she did not get mad. So that's evidence from Cinderella's very bad day. When Cinderella's stepsisters were mean to her, she was still nice to them, right? So this one is pretty close. Maybe we could clear up a few things and make it a little bit more clear, but I think it was very close to the learning target. It seemed to have most of the parts of the question answered. Good job, you guys. Here's another example. Rabbit would respond differently because he is not honest. He is selfish and he tricks Coyote. So this was Gus's group. Again, I see that restate. Rabbit would respond and then an answer differently because, and then they got right into their proof, right? They got right into the evidence. Because he is not honest, he is selfish, and he tricks Coyote. He would not listen. He would lie to the stepsisters and probably trick them. This is different from Cinderella because she is nice, helpful, and kind. So again, they have the evidence from Rabbit and Coyote and Cinderella's very bad day. Okay? Does that make sense? Are you guys exhausted?
Yeah.
That was hard work, right? But I think we finally got there. So give someone a fist bump, tell them good job.
Good job.
And